The first warning came from a cephalari defector. He told the Galactic Council to leave Earth alone. That if they drew blood from a human, the species wouldn't stop at justice, they'd chase you through time itself. The Council laughed. Until planets started going silent. Until entire species vanished in the dark. And by the time they begged for mercy, Earth had already deleted the word from their dictionary. Asterisk. They called it a disciplinary strike. The Galactic Council voted 81 to 31 in favor of showing the humans their place. They used words like containment precedent and measured response. But what the Zarnathi actually did was drop orbital plasma on a civilian outpost without warning. No soldiers. No weapons. Just researchers. Children. Families. 4,700 lives, gone in 3 minutes. The broadcast was intercepted galaxy-wide. The screams. The children clutching each other as the sky turned white. Then static. The Council offered condolences. A formal apology. Regrettable overreach, they said. Earth didn't respond. Not with words. Sol went dark. All communication satellites near human space went dead. Drones sent to investigate never returned. Trade routes were abandoned. The humans didn't send a fleet, didn't make a demand, didn't issue a declaration. They just disappeared. And the galaxy moved on, nervously. Until the first body was found. Governor Trassel, Zarnathi prime strategist of the Icarus strike, was discovered in his own home, still seated at his dining table, eyes open, heart removed with surgical precision, his blood used to scrawl one phrase on the ceiling above him. Vengeance, Day 1. The Council tried to suppress it, but leaks spread fast. Within days, another high-ranking officer vanished. Then another. A week later, the entire communications staff of the Zarnathi Outer Fleet was found stacked like bricks in the shape of the Terran word for remember. That was when the whispers began. That humans weren't preparing for war, they were executing one. Slowly. Quietly. Personally. In the council hall, panic festered beneath polished speeches. Chancellor Ruvik's attempted damage control. This is terrorism, not warfare, he barked. They're targeting civilians now. Ambassador Vostin, once a council diplomat to Earth, spoke softly but firmly. No. They are targeting decision-makers. These are not random killings. They are surgical. They're animals, someone shouted. No, Vostin corrected. They are archivists. And they've opened the drawer marked unpaid debts. The next night, every light on Zarnathi's sixth moon went out for 7 minutes. When it returned, a message played on every monitor, every screen, every hologram, a child's voice shaky but steady. My name was Elin Kai. I was 7. I wanted to be a singer. Icarus was my home. I died crying. You burned my sister in front of me. No demands. No threats. Just her voice. And silence. The council offered tribute. Earth said nothing. A week later, an interstellar freighter docked at the Ovarian Trade Hub exploded. Inside were 27 former council staffers involved in logistics planning for the Icarus strike. The ship had no human crew, no weapons, no signs of entry. Just the same symbol carved into the hull, a child's open hand, fingers outstretched, covered in ash. The council finally convened an emergency session. They're escalating, roared Chancellor Ruvix. They haven't even started, Vostin said. You've forgotten what humanity is. You think because they smiled at your parties and drank your wines that you knew them. But humans bury their rage deep, and when it resurfaces, it is precise. Then what do we do? You leave them alone. You build a monument. You beg. And still, Earth remained silent. In a quiet corridor beneath the Solarian Defense Corps, Commander Darius Vorn reviewed the list. 7,204 names. Every counselor who voted for the strike. Every general who approved the plan. Every analyst who knew it was a civilian target and said nothing. Each name linked to faces. Blood types. Habits. places of rest, places of worship, families. Darius didn't speak. He just nodded to the AI handler beside him. Execute protocol Iron Pulse. Elsewhere, in a shadowed facility orbiting Europa, a girl named Echo 3 trained with zero-gravity blades. She had no parents. She had no childhood. She had a target. In the galaxy's outer rim, 3 black ships slipped through space like whispers. Back at the Council, panic turned to desperation. The Alaksians surrendered all joint human research data. The Cephalari renounced Council authority. The Skeethan offered asylum to any human-born individual. But Earth still didn't answer. And then, finally, the Council received a message. Not from a diplomat. Not from a government. From an 8-year-old orphan whose parents died on Icarus. The girl stared into the recorder, cheeks hollow, eyes distant. I don't want justice. I don't want peace. I want them to feel what I felt. Alone. Forgotten. Ashes in the air. Behind her, on a screen, flickered the names of every confirmed memory squad strike. She blinked once. Then the screen cut to black. Somewhere deep in the ruins of Icarus, a new memorial was built, not by humans, but by defectors from the Council. On the granite wall, not a single human word was written. Only a date. Only a blood stain. And from that moment forward, the galaxy remembered the voice of Vostin. Not his warnings. Not his speeches. But the single line that became legend. Do not attack the humans. They will hunt you forever. The 4th target died without ever realizing he'd been marked. Admiral Culver of the Zarnathi Imperial Navy, former strategist of the Icarus operation, was found floating in his stasis bath, throat opened with surgical precision, blood suspended like a halo around his body. No alarms had triggered. No doors had been breached. Just a message carved into the glass of the tank. Day 4. Panic had stopped being private. The Council's internal chatter leaked into the black market feeds, spreading like wildfire. Markets crashed. Merchant guilds severed ties with former allies. Entire border sectors were abandoned. Colonies whispered the same question, what if we're next? Darius Vorn read every report with detached focus. He didn't react to the panic statements from Council races begging for forgiveness, nor to the mounting death tolls. His concern wasn't the present. His concern was the list. 7,204 names. Each name tied to a decision, a signature, a vote, a silence. Every individual who had stood by while children burned. It wasn't vengeance. It was accounting. And they were behind schedule. He turned to Echo 3, standing still in the center of the war room. She didn't blink. She didn't ask questions. Her files showed genetic enhancement, combat augmentation, and psychological stabilization after surviving Icarus. She was 9 years old when it happened. She hadn't spoken since. She didn't need to. Her record spoke for her. Your next 3 targets are planetary, Darius said. Remote systems. Defectors in hiding. Start with the Kilaris twins. She nodded once. No salute, no dramatics. Just turned and left. Elsewhere, on a mining world deep within Sarthani space, ex-Counselor Genrax entered his quarters and froze. A child's drawing was taped to his wall, 2 stick figures holding hands beneath a burning sun. The caption read, My sister said the fire couldn't hurt us if we held hands. He didn't call for security. He just sat down, hands shaking, and waited. Council sessions now opened with silence. Ruvix had lost weight, his robes hanging off him like old curtains. His voice, once thunderous, had shrunk to a rasp. They've killed 18 of ours in 12 days. Always decision-makers. Always clean. They're not sending messages. They're crossing names off a list. Then let's talk, croaked another. We sue for peace. You can't sue people who refuse to speak. Ambassador Vostin, now merely a guest, finally rose. They aren't coming to the table. They are the table now. You feasted. Now they collect? What do they want? Someone whispered. Vostin looked around the chamber. pausing on each face. What you took? With interest. At that moment, every screen across Council space flashed white. One by one, the names of the Icarus dead began appearing. Line after line. Age. Occupation. Status. Unarmed civilian. It took 47 minutes to scroll through them all. Then the screen turned black, and a simple voice spoke. You forgot them. We never will. The message repeated hourly across every known frequency. Some called it terrorism. Others called it justice. The ones who had nothing to fear stayed quiet. In the shadows of Earth's Titan command, a memory archive pulsed with energy. Not a server. Not data. A living brain, artificial, ancient, fed with every war Earth had survived, every betrayal, every strategy that had left humanity bleeding and angry and alone. It didn't analyze tactics. It analyzed patterns. Icarus wasn't an outlier, it said to Darius. It was culmination. Every warning ignored. Every promise broken. Every regret packaged in diplomacy. They thought we would cry. They forgot we evolved from predators. Update me, Darius replied. 17% of the list eliminated. 11% unreachable. 4% defected and requesting clemency. Darius narrowed his eyes. No clemency. The AI hesitated. Confirmed. On a distant moon used by Council Black Ops, 6 Memory Squad operatives breached the facility and extracted data on the original vote that authorized the Icarus strike. Not one vote had come with hesitation. Laughing transcripts. Dismissive remarks. One general had written, "Let's see how the monkeys squeal." They delivered his head, still grinning, in a sealed capsule to the Council embassy in neutral space. Inside the lid, a note. Squeal. Words spread faster than light. Sectors once loyal to the Council stopped answering their calls. The Cephalari homeworld, once an ally of the Zarnathi, declared neutrality. Voxnet channels exploded with praise for humanity, with anonymous admirers posting cryptic messages like, Earth remembers, and, the ashes speak. Within the ranks of the Council, paranoia turned to collapse. Assassinations were no longer covert, they were staged, performative. Fear became ritual. Every door opening triggered weapons. Every dark hallway, a test of courage. Some went mad. Some defected. And in the middle of it all, Darius Vorn stood unmoved. Why not talk to them? His adjutant asked once. Give the Council an ultimatum. They already got one, he replied. When they touched Icarus, they chose their future. But what if they offer everything? Their technology? Their surrender? Darius didn't look up from his list. You can't buy back burned children. Back in Council space, 3 former diplomats met in secret to propose terms of surrender. Before the session began, one noticed something odd, a folded paper on the table, aged and torn. On it a message. We were willing to forgive. You were eager to forget. Now we simply remember better than you do. No one spoke again. Memory Squad strikes doubled. Council defenses collapsed. No major human fleet was ever spotted. No invasion was launched. But every time a traitor tried to flee, someone was already waiting. By day 21, the Council released a final statement to the galaxy. We acknowledge our failure to protect innocent life. We condemn the Icarus attack and accept full responsibility. We beg for peace. We surrender unconditionally. There was no response. Just silence. Then, from deep space, one signal reached every corner of the galaxy. The voice of a child. Clear. Unshaken. I was 9 when they killed my family. They told us to run. But there was nowhere to go. Nowhere but fire. My sister held my hand. She sang to me while we burned. You said it was necessary. Now we say the same. Transmission ended. And the galaxy finally understood what it meant to wake Earth's memory. By the 33rd day, the word human became synonymous with fear in Council space. Not because of brute strength or planetary sieges, none had occurred. It was the precision. The silence. The inevitability. Every strike was a sentence passed. Every disappearance, a deliberate line drawn through a name on a list they hadn't seen but somehow knew existed. They weren't losing a war. They were being judged. General Tharn, once a hero of the Zarnathi expansions, now lived behind 8 security fields, 20 guards, and an AI-controlled bunker. He hadn't left it in weeks. He still received the reports, though he barely read them now. Each one began the same: another name, another corpse, another mark off the unknown tally. When the lights flickered and his security feed froze for 0.8 seconds, he didn't breathe. He just stared at the screen. When it returned, his reflection was there, unchanged. The guards outside didn't report anything unusual. Nothing moved. No doors had opened. But when he turned back to his desk, a single coin rested there. Terran minted. Outpost Icarus anniversary. Only 500 were ever made. He'd been given one when he voted for the strike. He'd lost it years ago. Below the coin, a note. "We remember what you forgot." He screamed for evacuation. But he knew he was already gone. On the 40th day, the Council declared a full collapse of military order. Units abandoned their posts, communications degraded, defectors fled to neutral zones that were no longer neutral. The Skeethan ambassador called for an emergency ceasefire broadcast across all quadrants. He stood in the heart of the council chamber, sweating, eyes twitching, voice cracking under the weight of fear and pleading. "We acknowledge the atrocity of Icarus. We accept blame. We accept punishment. But please, whoever's listening, this must end. Tell us what you want. We'll give it." The broadcast cut not with an answer, but with a feed. A memory playback from the Icarus dome. Children playing in a low-grav garden. Laughing. Singing. Then screaming. Then fire. Then silence. After 5 minutes, the feed ended. No words followed. The council chambers emptied like a sinking ship. Back on Earth, Commander Darius Vorn received the update. Phase 2 authorization confirmed. Targets were dwindling, not from resistance, but surrender. Names were being handed over by their own kind. No coercion. No negotiations. Just desperate hands offering what little time they had left. "They're begging for contact," his adjutant said. "They want conditions." Darius didn't look up. They had conditions. They chose arrogance. A pause. Then, quieter. "How far are we willing to go?" Darius finally met his eyes. "We're not going anywhere. We're already there." Council intelligence fractured entirely. In place of structure, panic became a system. Formerly proud species began marking their own traitors, hoping to curry favor. Some even built shrines to the Icarus dead, hoping tribute would spare them. In one such temple on Thala 9, a group of pilgrims lit a fire for the children. They stood in silence for 7 hours. When they returned to their ship, they found a single transmission waiting. "They will be spared. You spoke the names." The galaxy listened. But others continued hiding. Ex-Governor Fail of the Dalkar Consortium had retreated to a fortress station, protected by rogue mercenaries and shielded by a collapsing starfield. For weeks, he mocked the humans. "They don't have the range. They don't have the reach. They're emotional creatures, not gods." Until his own crew found his body, eyes burned out, mouth sewn shut with synthetic fiber. A child's lullaby echoed from the station's speakers for hours. Some still believed they could reason with Earth. Ambassador Zareth of the Ovarian Empire managed to send a direct message through the last functional diplomatic channel. "We were wrong. So wrong. We offer reparations. Technology. Worlds. Our deepest apologies. Just tell us what you want." Earth responded 1 hour later. "We want you to remember." Zareth trembled. "Remember what?" The response came swift. "What it felt like when you thought your children were safe." The message was never aired again. Zareth vanished 2 days later. The truth settled over the stars like dust. This wasn't diplomacy. This wasn't conquest. This was a cultural reset. The humans didn't want territory. They didn't want power. They wanted history corrected. In the shadows of the Cephalari moon, Vostin met with Darius one final time. No longer a council envoy. Just a witness. You've proven your point, he said. We haven't made a point, Darius replied. We've made a memory. Then what's the end goal? Darius considered. That they never mistake silence for weakness again. You've made them afraid. We want more than fear. We want permanence. Vostin studied him. You think this ends with names and blood? No, Darius said. It ends when no child ever burns again because someone thought they could strike without consequence. And if someone forgets? Darius smiled, cold and certain. Then we remember for them. By day 50, the list was down to less than 100 names. Most were already running from shadows, hunted not by humans, but by their own. Entire civilizations were turning in their guilty, not out of morality, but to escape the nightmare breathing down their necks. They had learned too late. Justice wasn't a system for humans. It was a scar, passed from generation to generation, coded into story, blood, and instinct. You could bury it under treaties and smiles, but when unearthed, it didn't just bite back. It devoured. And still, no human army had been seen. No flagship had entered council space. Only names. Only silence. Only memory. Because Earth hadn't declared war. They'd declared remembrance. And remembrance, once awakened, does not sleep. The 96th target tried to buy time with confession. Ex-Counselor Drell Voth broadcast his full role in the Icarus strike across 13 systems. He named co-conspirators, leaked encrypted files, admitted to every detail, even cried on camera. The final shot showed him on his knees, begging for forgiveness. The next morning, the Council's emergency servers received a single image, Voth's confession etched into his skin in reverse, burned through the bone. He had been heard. Then erased. The Council collapsed in everything but name. No more meetings. No votes. Only apologies broadcast into empty space. The few who remained shuffled paperwork in dim offices, hoping that silence meant safety. It didn't. Darius Vorn no longer read reports. His screen showed names and statuses. Crossed-out entries glowed faint red, one by one. He said little, because there was little left to say. At this stage, it wasn't a campaign. It was a final accounting. You've gone too far, said his aide once, breaking the silence that had hung over command like a sheet of glass. They're broken. You won. He didn't answer immediately. He simply tapped the screen, highlighting one name still active. Admiral Seshtar. Council Fleet Chief. Primary Planner of Icarus. Last seen in hiding near the Galactic core. I'll stop when that name fades, he said. Even if she surrenders? She didn't ask if the children would surrender when she gave the order. In an old mining station disguised as a refugee hub, Seshtar slept behind rotating AI guards and atmospheric distortion fields. She hadn't spoken publicly in over a year. She moved every 3 days. Changed identity profiles weekly. Still, she knew it was a matter of time. That night, her guards vanished. No alarms. No screams. Just absence. When she woke, her personal log had been accessed. One new entry had been added by an unknown user. You taught us that silence is authorization. She never made it to the escape pod. The next target defected before contact. He jettisoned his own escort, disabled his tracker, and flew blind into Terran space, unarmed and transmitting an old Earth hymn on loop. His ship was intercepted. No weapons locked. No demands issued. He was boarded by a single operative and handed a recorder. You have 60 seconds. Make it count. The alien stared, trembling. Please. I was only an analyst. I filed data. I never pulled a trigger. You named the target parameters. I was following orders. The operative tilted their head. So were we. He never finished his message. The recorder played only static. At that point, The galaxy stopped asking what the humans wanted. They began asking if they'd ever stop. Debates flared across shattered governments. Should Earth be confronted, reasoned with, or feared into silence? But those who knew history understood. Earth didn't stop because someone told them to. They stopped when they were finished. By now, the story of Icarus was taught in hidden classrooms on fringe colonies, not as policy failure, but as myth. A warning to children about what happens when you mistake kindness for softness. It became a proverb passed between nervous traders. Don't wake what bleeds quietly. Human ambassadors, once absent, began reappearing. Not to negotiate. To observe. They didn't threaten, demand, or gloat. They simply watched. And wherever they stood, the air got colder. Because everyone knew that behind them stood not fleets, but memory, and memory did not forgive. One council remnant, a collective species called the Vurek, tried to offer Earth a treaty. A public apology. A monument. It was sincere. Darius Vorn read the proposal in silence, then responded with a single line. Put up the monument. Make it loud. But carve the names of the dead before the names of the guilty. The Vurek complied. The monument now stands on the edge of dead space, a black slab bearing the names of every lost child from Icarus. No soldiers. No leaders. Just the smallest victims carved in the largest stone. And beneath them, etched in tiny print, the names of every planner, every approver, every coward who watched it happen and said nothing. No guards were posted at the site. They knew no one would dare touch it. Still, the final name remained. Vorn stared at the screen. It blinked. Active. Confirmed alive. The last unaccounted instigator. He walked alone to the ops center and gave the order. Full trace. Don't send a team. Send me. His aide blinked. You haven't left the core in. Doesn't matter. It started with me. It ends with me. He boarded the craft without ceremony. No fleet. No escort. Just a single stealth drive and the last unsent message from Outpost Icarus. A child's recording, corrupted but still audible. If anyone hears this, we were here. We were alive. That was the sound he carried into the dark. The final target, a politician turned recluse named Torin Val, lived beneath a false name in an unregistered rock station near the dead edge of galactic space. He survived on ration cubes, recycled air, and the belief that enough distance meant safety. When the lights flickered and he heard the static hiss of human footsteps, he didn't fight. He didn't run. He simply sat down and whispered, I didn't think you'd come this far. Darius said nothing. Torin's voice cracked. We all thought you'd rage, burn out, lose steam. We didn't think you'd keep going. Still silence. I never gave the order. I just sat at the table. Darius finally spoke. That's why you're last. He placed a small recorder on the table between them and pressed play. It was the child again. The same broken voice. If anyone hears this. Torin wept as the voice finished. Darius stood, voice flat. They were forgotten. Now you are. The lights dimmed. When Earth received the confirmation, the final name faded from the list. The ledger closed. The war had never been declared. But memory had been served. And in the cold, echoing void, the galaxy understood something it would never forget. You can outgun humans. Outnumber them. Outspeak them. But never, ever, outlast their memory. The final silence came not with triumph, but with stillness. Darius Vorn returned to Earth unnoticed. No parades, no banners, no headlines. His craft touched down on an unmarked landing pad outside a memorial field, where the wind moved through rows of glass columns. Each column etched with a name. No titles. No ages. Just names. The dead of Icarus. He walked between them slowly, a weightless gravity in his steps. He paused once, where two names sat side by side, Elin and Mirakai. He reached out and placed a small, black coin on the base of their pillar. Then he turned and walked away. In orbit, Memory Protocol Command issued the last signal, all entries complete. Archive sealed. Across all active channels, Terran fleet systems went to standby. Squad movement ceased. Dossiers vanished. The silence, once ominous, now felt like closure. Elsewhere in the galaxy, the Council's skeleton remnants held their breath. The war they never officially called a war had ended without fanfare. No treaty. No celebration. Just the quiet vanishing of names they'd spent years dreading. A single message was dispatched from Earth. Unencrypted. Unfiltered. To the worlds that watched Icarus burn and said nothing, we are finished. Let what follows be yours to write. We've erased our debt. Do not borrow ours again. It echoed longer than any explosion. A trade delegation from the Ilverian Concord sent a cautious message days later, offering peaceful re-engagement and open dialogue. Earth replied simply, "We remember peace. We also remember why it broke. Approach us with honesty, and we will meet you with strength, not vengeance." They responded with gratitude. Trade resumed, slowly, and for the first time in years, human ships crossed neutral lines without escort. No one dared intercept them. The monument on Thala 9 became a place of pilgrimage. Not just for humans, but for aliens who'd once ignored the warnings. Beneath the massive slab of black stone were quiet lines written in hundreds of languages. "We did not forget. Now you will not either." A Cephalari historian published the first complete record of the Icarus event and what followed, titled The Silence Between Fire. In it he wrote, "They were not merciless. They were meticulous. We judged them emotional, but their justice came with cold hands. What we mistook for savagery was memory turned weapon. It wasn't the war that terrified us. It was the restraint." Darius Vorn declined interviews. He refused medals. His statement, when asked for comment, was brief. "Don't make heroes of us. We weren't noble. We were necessary." Back at Titan Command, the sealed archive was buried beneath 4 kilometers of reinforced rock. The memory core, once a pulsing nexus of wrath, was shut down. Its final log simply read, "They can sleep now." The Council never fully recovered. Not because of destruction, but because of what they'd been forced to see. Their bureaucracy had never imagined consequence that didn't negotiate. Their arrogance had never known silence that held a blade behind it. They rebuilt slowly, under new names and new codes, all carved with the understanding that nothing was forgotten. One species tried to mimic the human approach years later, weaponizing vengeance under the banner of historical pain. They failed. Spectacularly. Because they didn't understand the core difference. Humans didn't retaliate to reclaim pride. They hunted to make sure it never happened again. A young diplomat once asked an old Terran ambassador at a conference what truly drove their response to Icarus. "Was it rage?" she asked. "Revenge?" The ambassador smiled without warmth. "It was love." She blinked. "I don't understand." "You don't have to," he said. "Just remember it." And she did. Because the humans never erased their pain. They enshrined it. Not to be bitter, but to be better. To make damn sure that no one, not even themselves, would forget what happened when children burned and the galaxy shrugged. Darius retired on a quiet island in the Pacific. No security detail. No notoriety. Just the sound of wind through old trees and a small radio that sometimes played static where signals never reached. He didn't speak of the war. He didn't need to. He'd already told the galaxy everything it needed to know. One night, long after the stars had cooled and the names had faded from public memory, a deep space probe sent an automated message from the edge of known territory. It had passed an abandoned station, long dead, orbiting a nameless black dwarf. Inside, on the last active panel, a single message blinked. "To the next who forget, we haven't." That message was never shut off. And maybe that's what it means to be human. Not the strength. Not the fire. Not even the silence. But the memory. And the choice to carry it, not as a weapon, but as a promise. Never again.